right, getting ready to shrink wrap a 17-foot Montauk Boston Whaler. Just showing you real quickly my organized truck. I've got my short ladder. I have my shrink wrapping torch with the extra long hose. Roll a shrink wrap on a dolly so that I can move it around and unroll it easily enough. And then up here in my rafters, I've got 2 by 3 inch studs, as well as 1 by 3 inch strapping and a little bit longer of a ladder here. So we're going to get everything out and get prepared. We're going to build a frame, and we're going to pull over some shrink wrap, and we're going to wrap this puppy up. All right, so I'm starting to get prepped here. I've got 1 2 by 3 on board the boat already. Might need a second one, might not. I've got my battery operated skill saw to cut things to size. I have my propane tank is up there at the front of the boat with my regulator turned on. I like to go fast, so I have the regulator turned all the way up, and then I've stretched out the hose, and here I have my wicked cool shrink fast gun. Definitely worth the money, saves a ton of time, pays for itself. I have my strapping here, and I will always feather the edge down. That's going to be the bow of the boat. I'm going to tape that to the bow rail. And here for this boat, I know that I'm going to need 2 pieces of strapping because one is just not long enough, and I'm going to overlap the joints like this. I'm going to put 2 screws here, 1 screw back here, and then I'm going to flip it over and do the same, and then I'm going to put some tape around this sharp edge so that it doesn't snag onto the shrink wrap when I try to pull it across or when I shrink it. I have my shrink wrap out. I love my U-Haul truck. It's perfect for this. Pull the ramp out, pull the dolly out, and my shrink wrap will easily just roll right off of this to the length that I need. Every time I take a piece off, I try to remember to write down how much I have left, so I don't end up getting short-handed on a job. So I will move on here to the next. All right, so like I said, here's how I secure the 2 pieces together, and then I am going to put tape over this edge here to make a nice smooth transition. Just thought I would show you the tool belt I'm wearing. You're going to want something. But I have my screws here. You're going to need a pair of gloves or you're going to burn your hands pretty badly. Tape measure's handy, but I don't usually use it. But most importantly, here is my Leatherman tool, and I'm going to be using that a lot. And that'll go in here. For supplies, I have my measuring tape, and I have tape and strapping. So this is the webbing or strapping that I use. That needs to be on the boat. Here's my 3-inch tape that I'll use. That will stay here with me. And we're gonna tape up that joint, and we're gonna start building a frame over this boat. All right, next thing, I got my strapping. Here's my joint, put some tape over it so it's got a nice smooth transition. I've got my lumber on board, my saw is ready, and I am gonna start up here. I've got the strapping is long enough to cover from front to back. I am hanging it, just right now it's resting on the outboard cover. And I have my feathered tip here, and I'm gonna tape that to the bow rail so we have a nice smooth transition, no jagged edges, no sharp corners. Okay, I started with the bow like I pretty much always do. I've got my bow taped this way, and then I have a piece of tape that comes up and goes this way. So 1 piece and then another piece around it just to keep it from falling off. I've got 2 supports for a 17-foot boat. Basically, it helps split the load, keeps the weight from the snow from breaking the strapping. And so I've got my first support here, just a couple of screws. Again, 2 by 3s, not 2 by 4s. A couple of screws here supported by the backrest for the seat. and then we already saw that. And then I feathered the back end and taped it, and then put a piece of tape around here. And so that holds that in place. Next, I will run some strapping or webbing from railing over to railing, and again forward, railing over to railing. I'm going to do a clove hitch around the strapping, and whatever knot I decide to use to hold on to the railing, I will get that taken care of and come right back. Okay, I use a lot of bowline clove hitch, nice and tight. That'll help support the weight. Also keeps the frame centered while we pull the shrink wrap over. Again, I did a bowline, a clove hitch, and then a trucker's hitch, which is not a common knot, but certainly helps gain some leverage when you're trying to pull things tight. And again, nice and tight. So now we will measure for our shrink wrap, and we'll cut, and we will rig our strapping around the outside of the boat, which we'll do next, actually. All right, so I've finished with the strapping around this Boston Whaler, and the purpose of this is I'm going to measure the shrink wrap to be about a foot overhang, and I'm going to bring it over and I'm going to tuck it up underneath this all the way around, and then I'm going to heat it and shrink it and tap it along the way. That'll bond it together so that it doesn't come undone, and in that case it'll be basically glued or adhered or holding the strapping so it can't separate. But Boston Whaler, I do a lot of these. You're going to want to have a loop towards the back of the boat. If you don't, if you had that loop up here, let's say, and then you pull this tight, because of the angle of the transom and the chine, it's going to want to pull it down. So you need to have a loop to keep it held up towards the back of the boat. Same with the front. Here we are here, and that keeps it from falling down underneath the boat and getting loose and sloppy. And then I usually go right through the bow eye on most boats, and that's going to be fine. We're going to fill that with shrink wrap, that whole area. We're going to come around the winch, and then same on this side here. Nice. And then here's another. Okay, and again, nice and tight. I'm going to come underneath. I have from the stern eye, the toe rings here on both sides, and then I tie a bowline in the loose end, and then I thread through the bowline, pull it super tight, and then knot it off. And that concludes the strapping until we get the shrink wrap measured and cut. All right, so go to your get your measuring tape, throw it over the boat. I overhang a foot past the strapping on the other side, and then I'll do the same thing here on this side. We have 11 feet. I will add an extra foot, so I have a foot overhanging again on both sides. Makes it 12 feet. Now I will go and cut my shrink wrap at 12 feet. All right, so there's my measuring tape, locked at 12 feet, which is the length of shrink wrap I need to cut. I use a 32-foot wide roll of shrink wrap. The roll I get is 186 feet long, so it's a 32 by 186. And it's costly. It'll cost you a few bucks. Here's my dolly. I have the end of my tape clipped on here, and this will be my cutting edge. So I'm just going to walk this back. Feet. This is hard to do with one hand. I could do better. I gotta put this down. All right, I'm done with the shrink wrap. I could put this away in my truck now, or leave it there. It's not going to be in my way. I've taken my 12-foot piece of shrink wrap and I've just slung it over the boat, overhanging each side by a foot. And now I'm going to take the front edge of the shrink wrap. I'm going to pull that, and then I'm going to tape it down here to the tongue of the trailer. And then I'm going to pull it all backwards, pull it tight. And then I'm going to grab the back corners, or the back side, let's say. Whatever I have for shrink wrap, I'm gonna shove it right here. I'm gonna reach through, pull it, and pull it around this corner. Same on the other side. I'll have pulled it back tight over the engine. I'm gonna shove the shrink wrap up here. I'm gonna reach in and then pull it around this corner. So it'll be taped in the front and it'll be wedged around these corners in the back. That should keep the wind from blowing it off, which is the most annoying part of shrink wrapping. All right, so here in the front, in the center, I have taped it to the post for the trailer winch. And then I've stretched it back, pulled it tight over the back of the engine, even on both sides, up under, reach around from inside and pull it through. So it's pinched around this corner. Same here. And even though it's a bit of a breezy day, it's not flying away from me. So now I am going to go around the boat, and I'm going to pull it tight. Hard to do this one-handed. Every once in a while, I'll put a little fold in it. Yeah, it's not easy to do one-handed. And then I will keep going around. Sometimes it's easier to do both sides. Boat like this, I could probably go all the way around the entire boat and get it all tucked up underneath the strapping. And then I will go around and heat the edges and adhere them to each other, and then I'll show you what's next. So I have gone around, I have tucked the shrink wrap up underneath the strapping all the way around, and then here I always try to go around the trailer hitch. I'll cover the whole thing, and you can see how I have it tucked up underneath there, and I have plenty here, so I will be able to pull one side under the other side and then heat it, and that will stick the two sides together. This side is all tucked up underneath the strapping, and then back here I just cut off the excess. So I'm going to go a little short here, long around the tip of the outboard, the skeg, and then short on the other side. And then I'm going to tuck this all up, and then I should have enough extra shrink wrap that I can go right around the whole engine. Again, hit it with the shrink fast gun and stick it together, and basically turn this into one enclosed unit. All right, so I've got it all tucked in. I've got the loose material just hanging around the outboard like that. I've got my gun, I've got my glove on. This is the hand that I usually will use to pat anything I'm trying to stick together. For example, here's a little flap right here, and it'll stick together. And it's all stuck together. Sticks together. Okay, and I'm using my gloved hand to do that. I missed a little spot right here. I'll have to use a piece of tape. close, but no cigar there. Yeah. All right, now I'm going to pull the other side. Gonna basically just turn this into a nifty little Christmas package, okay? Okay, there you go. Stick it. Stick it. This end doesn't really matter too much. I'm going to open this up so that the hub doesn't hold water, but make it look pretty. Okay, so that's stuck together. Now we're gonna do the edge where it's tucked underneath. It looks good. Probably tuck just a little bit more here. Okay. Same as I did around the outboard, I'm gonna do up here for the trailer hitch. Just gonna turn it into a nice little package, Christmas package. Stick it. Stick it. Okay. Oop, that's probably a little overboard. Okay, moving along. Okay, so what we've done is we've done the whole ring border, underlap the strapping, and now I'm gonna take a couple pieces of strapping, I'm gonna tie it here, I'm gonna roll it underneath the boat, I'm gonna pull it tight, and then I'll tie it over there, I'll roll it under the boat, and then I'll pull it tight. That will keep all the shrink wrap pulled down so that the wind can't get underneath it and tear it apart. All right, so I've already done that one. You see how it's pulled nice and tight, and it's tightened up all the shrink wrap over the top. I've tied my bowline on the other side, and what you do, you definitely don't want to cut the strapping, which is right here. I'm gonna go just above it, just a little poke. I'm gonna feed this through, and then I'm gonna do what's called a trucker's hitch. Ready? Watch this. There you go. That's a trucker's hitch. Pull it nice and tight. There's your trucker's hitch. All right. Now I can just go bananas and shrink wrap this puppy. All right, you can start front, back, middle, but you do want to try to go from the bottom up. That way the heat is working with you and not against you. You just want to shrink it, but you don't want to burn it. This would be a good time to wear a glove. This stuff is hot and it'll stick to you, and that hurts. A little hot. All right, well, I've definitely done better. I got a few holes that I need to patch up, and then we're gonna put a vent on there, and I'll come back to you. All right, I've put tape over all my burns, all the little holes, covered everything up. Looks nice again. You do have to be careful. If you do set it on fire, it will continue to burn. It doesn't happen very often, but if you're not careful, it will continue to burn. And if you have the shrink wrap and you're shrinking it right on top of somebody's seats or canvas, you're gonna do some damage, and you don't want damage, obviously. So these are the vents that I use. They just stick on, and then you cut out the center part and just put the cap back on. It just clips in, and there you go. 17-foot Boston Whaler like this, one vent. If it was a ski boat with a lot of cushions and seats, more vents. I would put at least 2. The bigger the boat, the more vents you need. You want to make sure that it breathes and doesn't hold mold. And on that note, it's not a good idea to shrink wrap a boat if it's soaking wet, because it will stay wet and fester all winter, and will be pretty green in the spring when your customer goes to uncover it. So that's it. We're all wrapped up. I would normally cut this so that it drains, but again, I would usually have the outboard tilted all the way down. I think it's better if I just leave it covered here. That'll keep water from getting in the hub, but I will put a little cut back here so that any moisture, condensation, or anything that does show up around the lower unit has a chance to drain up and drain out and doesn't fill up the shrink wrap. And so that's it. And I mean it when I say that. That's a wrap.